The first question that people usually ask is, what is statistics? Statistics is the study of how to collect, organize, analyze, and interpret data. The purpose of statistics is to take information from a small group of people or objects and make an inference on the larger population. The bulk of this course will be spent analyzing information we've collected. But before we can do that, we need to know how to collect it and how to organize it. This video is a little introduction to those concepts and also to some vocabulary terms that we're going to be using throughout the year. When I do a statistical study, I'm usually gathering information to start. The people or objects I'm gathering information from are called my individuals. And the information that I collect from them is called my variable. Once I've gathered all my variables from all my different individuals, I usually will have a set of numbers, and that will be my data set. So let's start with an example. Let's say I want to figure out what is the average height of all Bunker Hill students. Well, the individuals in that study would be the students. That's who I'm going to collect the information from. And the information I'm collecting would be height, so that's my variable. So now once I have collected all those height values, I would consider that my data. The problem is that Bunker Hill has over 14,000 students. So do you think I'm going to be able to collect the height of all 14,000 students? If I was able to collect the height of every single Bunker Hill student, I would have a data set that I would call population data. But more likely, we're only going to collect the height of some of the Bunker Hill students. So when I've collected that data, I would call that sample data, because it's only from some of the individuals of interest. So now back to our example. If we were trying to figure out the average height of all Bunker Hill students, and we collected information from just our class, so 22 students, that would be called sample data, because I only have information from some of the individuals of interest. But if I changed the task, and I changed it to wanting to figure out the average height of just our class, the same data set, the same 22 students, that would now be called population data. So what's interesting to note is that our data set itself has not changed at the same 22 numbers, but in task number 1 I refer to it as sample data, and in task number 2 I refer to it as population data. So sample versus population really just is determined by the situation. In addition to defining data as either sample or population, we can define it another way as well. We can define our data as quantitative or qualitative. So I wanted to explain the difference. Quantitative data, you usually think of numbers. But more specifically, quantitative data has to be a number that has a value. So it's usually some measurement of some kind. So some examples would be the weight or the age or the height of a student. Those would all be considered quantitative data. Qualitative data usually puts the individual into some kind of category. So qualitative data is generally non-numerical. It would be something like your gender or your eye color or your hair color. It basically places the individual into a specific group. Now, one example I wanted to point out here was that last example, the shirt numbers. So you might think that the number on a uniform would be quantitative because it's a number, but the uniform number has no value. The way I like to describe it is that a quantitative variable, you would be able to do some kind of meaningful math operation with it, like add, subtract, multiply, divide. If I had a student's height, I could add that to another student's height and that would make sense. But if I had a student's uniform number and I added it to another uniform number, well, that doesn't really make any sense. Finally, I want to go over the difference between a statistic and a parameter. These are words I'm going to use throughout the year. When I refer to a statistic, I'm talking about a sample. And when I'm referring to a parameter, I'm talking about a population. So back to our example when we were talking about finding the average height of Bunker Hill students. Eventually we'd want to find that average height, and if I was finding the average height of a sample, I would refer to that as a sample statistic. If I had the average height of the entire population, all 14,000 Bunker Hill students, I would refer to that as a population parameter.